On the surface, the Noah case has always been described as a mystery. A 14-year-old boy leaves home in Belfast. He disappears while cycling across the city. 6 days later, he's found dead inside a storm drain. But the inquest has forced a different question into the open. Not only what happened to Noah, but what happened during the search for him. Because in a missing child case, the first hour are not just time passing, they are evidence. They decide which cameras are checked, which witnesses are found, which roads are searched, which theories are followed, and which answers are lost before anyone understands how important they were. Years later, the inquest has been examined in CCTV, police logs, search decision, missing opportunities, witness evidence, and explanations given under oath. This video is not claiming to solve Noah's death. It is not claiming a hidden plot. It is asking factual question. How did the inquest expose mistakes in the search for Noah? And why do those mistakes still matter? And to understand that, we have to go back to the evening when Noah left home and the normal day became a case that Northern Ireland still cannot let go. Noah was 14 years old. He lived with his mother, Fiona, and on the day he disappeared, he was planning to meet friends in the Cavehill area. That is the simple starting point. A child left home on his bicycle. But what made Noah's case so difficult from the beginning was that his movements soon became unusual. The inquest heard evidence about Noah being seen on CCTV and by witnesses as he moved through parts of Belfast before he disappeared. Those final movements became the center of the investigation. Where did he go? Why did he take that route? What happened between the last confirmed sighting and the storm drain where he was later found? The confirmed outcome is that Noah was found dead on June 27, 2020. 6 days after he went missing, a post-mortem examination found the cause of death was drowning. But an inquest does not only look at the final outcome. It examines the circumstances, and in Noah's case, the circumstances begin with a painful reality. The search for him depends on police building a timeline quickly, accurately, and with every available piece of evidence. That is where the first questions begin. In a missing person investigation, a timeline is not just a list of time. It is a map. It tells search team where to go first. It tells officer which cameras matter. It tells investigators which witnesses sighting fit and which ones does not. For Noah, the timeline was built from CCTV, witness sighting, police logs, phone informations, and items found during the search. The inquest heard that Noah left his home in South Belfast on his bicycle on Sunday, June 21st, 2020. He was going to meet friends in the Cavehill area in the north of the city. But as the hours passed, the investigations became more complicated. Noah's bicycle was found. His belongings were found. CCTV was gathered. Witnesses came forward. Search teams moved across different areas. The problem was that every new piece of information changed the shape of the search. If Noah had been seen in one location at one time, then a camera somewhere else could confirm whether he passed through. If a witness saw him near a certain road, then nearby gardens, drains, wooded area and building could become important. If a camera timestamp was wrong, the whole timeline could be shifted. That is why the first 24 hours matter so much, because the search was not only for Noah, it was also a search for the correct version of his last movement. And the inquest later heard that one important piece of CCTV may not have been identified when it mattered most. One of the most important issues raised during the inquest was CCTV. The court heard that Noah's appearance on Grove Leisure Centre CCTV appeared to have been missed during the critical first 24 hours after he went missing. That detail matters because CCTV is not just footage, it is confirmation. It can place a missing person in a location. It can show direction of travel. It can confirm whether they were alone. It can show if a witness sighting matches the timeline. But CCTV can also fail an investigation if it's handled incorrectly. The inquest heard that questions were raised about camera times, real time, and whether officers checked the correct period of footage. Counsel for Fiona suggested that if officers checked the wrong timestamp, they could have been looking at the wrong moment. That means Noah could be on the footage but still be missed. This is not a small technical detail. In a missing child case, the difference of minutes can change where search teams are sent, and the inquest heard that the group footage still had not been properly identified or collected at a later point in the early search. The point is not that one missed camera explains the whole case. The point is that a missing timeline can create a missing search direction. And once CCTV becomes uncertain, investigators are forced to rely on weaker information. That leads to the next issue. Where exactly should police have been searching? Noah was eventually found in a storm drain tunnel in North Belfast. That fact has always sat at the center of the case. But the inquest had examined not only where Noah was found, but how police approached that area before he was found. The court heard evidence about the culvert area, the drainage system, and the search decision made around it. A retired PSNI inspector told the inquest that his team did not expect to find Noah inside the storm drain. He said their operation was to rule out the possibility that Noah was in or near the culvert. That is a crucial detail, because it shows the search was shaped by assumption. Police were not ignoring the culvert completely, but according to evidence heard at the inquest, they did not initially expect it to be where Noah would be found. The question is whether that assumption matched the evidence available at the time. Noah's bicycle and belongings had been found. Witness evidence and CCTV placed attention on the area. A drainage system was nearby, and yet the search of that system became one of the most heavily examined parts of the inquest. Search teams also faced real difficulties. The court heard about the complexity of the tunnel system, inaccurate or difficult infrastructure information, hazards inside the drain, and conditions that made searching dangerous. This mattered because the issue is not simple. It is not fair to pretend the storm drain search was easy, but the inquest has still asked whether the culvert should have become a stronger focus earlier. And if the answer is yes, then the next question is harder. Was time lost before the search strategy fully matched the evidence? By 2026, the inquest was not only revisiting Noah's final journey, it was also examining the conduct of the investigation itself. Police witnesses were asked to explain decisions made in the first hours and days. They were asked about CCTV, they were asked about the culvert, they were asked about records, logs, evidence, and how certain decisions were reached. An issue reported from the inquest involved the PSNI control work system, which was used to record information from calls and reports. The court heard about technical issues that could have delayed information being passed on the officer searching for Noah. Again, this does not prove something sinister, but it does matter, because missing person investigations depend on information moving fast. If a member of the public reports a sighting, that information has to reach the right people quickly. If it is a delayed, misunderstood, or buried in a system issue, then search team can lose direction. The inquest also heard that a senior PSNI officer denied telling police witnesses what to say before giving evidence. That denial mattered because it shows how closely the inquest was examining not only what happened in 2020, but also how the investigation was later explained. Inquests test evidence in public. They allow lawyers to challenge timelines, decision, assumption, and memories. And in Noah's case, the public testing has shown that the search was not a clean, simple story. It was a pressured investigation built from incomplete information, technical problems, human judgments, and decisions that are now being questioned and wrote. Then come one of the most important moments. A senior detective accepted that mistakes had been made. The inquest heard that the lead detective in Noah's case admitted to an investigative failure and apologized to Fiona. That is one of the clearest moments in the public record. The court heard questioning about whether the investigation had followed a supposition that Noah had disappeared by choice. The detective disagreed with wording that suggested blame, but accepted that he had pursued the idea that Noah did this by choice because that is where he left the evidence and information took the investigation. Then came the key admission. When it was put to him that he failed to look for the answer, he said yes and apologized. He also said mistakes were made, but they were not deliberate. He described them as human error and said the officer involved were not incompetent. That distinction is important. An error does not have to be deliberate to matter. A missed piece of footage can still matter. A delayed search decision can still matter. A wrong assumption can still matter. A technical issue can still matter because the victim was a child and the question was urgent. Where is Noah? The inquest has not turned every mistake into proof of wrongdoing, but it has shown that decisions made during the investigation are no longer just questions raised online. They are being examined inside a courtroom, in front of a jury, through evidence and sworn testimony. And that leads to the hardest part of the case. What can the evidence prove and what can it not prove? The confirmed evidence is this. Noah disappeared in Belfast in June 2020. He was 14 years old. He was later found dead in a storm drain. A post-mortem found the cause of death was drowning. The inquest heard that important CCTV appeared to have been missed during the critical first 24 hours. It also heard evidence about search decision around the culvert, technical and practical problems, and police witnesses being asked to explain how the investigation was handled. The inquest also heard expert evidence that Noah likely entered the drainage system through the Premier Drive culvert area. Reporting from the inquest say there was no direct CCTV or witness evidence showing him entering the culvert, but expert evidence focused heavily on that interest and the drainage system. So here is one careful interpretation. One possible theory is that the early investigation became too dependent on incomplete assumptions before the full evidence picture was built. This does not prove bad faith. It does not prove a wider plot. It does not prove that police wanted to avoid the truth. But it could explain why certain opportunities become so important later. If early CCTV was missed, then the timeline was weaker. If the timeline was weaker, then the search area may have remained wider than it needed to be. If the culvert was treated mainly as something to rule out rather than a central possibility, then the search strategy may not have matched the most important danger quickly enough. The problem with this theory is that it cannot answer the biggest question on its own. It cannot prove what happened to Noah before he entered the drain. It cannot prove whether early action would have changed the outcome. It cannot prove what evidence would have been found in if every camera, witness, and search area had been handled differently. What is missing is the one thing every family wants in a case like this: a complete unbroken chain from the moment Noah left home to the moment he entered the drain system. And without that chain, every mistake becomes heavier. because each one represents a chance to know more than we know now. The outcome as of now is that the inquest has brought the investigation into public view. It has not turned the case into a simple answer. It has not confirmed the criminal explanation. It has not removed every uncertainty, but it has shown specific issues that matter. The court has heard about missed or mishandled CCTV questions. It has heard about search decision around the storm drain. It has heard about technical issues in police information system. It has heard police witnesses being challenged about what they knew, when they knew it, and how they acted. It has also heard police evidence defending parts of the investigation. That is why this case must be handled carefully. Some mistakes can be real without proving a conspiracy. Some decisions can be questioned without proving they were made for the wrong reason. Some answers can remain missing without meaning someone hid them. But none of that makes the question unimportant. For Fiona, the inquest is not an internet debate. It is a legal process where the decisions around her son's disappearance are tested in public. For the public, it is a reminder that missing person investigations are fragile. They depend on speed, accuracy, communication, and humility. And when any of those fail, the damage can last for years. That is why Noah's case still matters beyond one family, one city, and one search, because it asks what happened when the evidence is there, but the system does not understand it quickly enough. The most painful part of the Noah case is not only where he was found, it is the possibility that some answers were lost before anyone knew how important they were. A camera that should have helped build the timeline, a curve that was searched but not expected to hold the answer, a system issue that could have slowed information, a theory that may have shaped the investigation too early, an apology that came years later, after the questions had already grown too heavy. The inquest has not solved every mystery, but it has changed the way the case is viewed. It has moved the conversation away from rumor and toward evidence, away from online certainty and toward courtroom testing, away from shouting what must have happened and toward asking what can actually be proven. And maybe that is why people still care so deeply, because Noah was a child, because the timeline was fragile, because the search depends on decision made under pressure, and because the final question is still difficult to answer. If the early hours had been handled differently, would we know more about what happened to Noah? That question is not an accusation. It is the reason the inquest still matters. Thank you.